The Big Fat Football Quiz with Leicester Till I Die TV.
So you think you know your football?
Well, let's see.
Are you ready? I'm saying, are you ready?
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here. Now be sure to watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV by subscribing on YouTube and following them on social media for all the latest Leicester City news and information. Come on you foxes!
Strap yourself in.
Because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
Good evening, fellow Fox fans. Yes, 'tis I, Chris. Just in case you wondered how the devil... It's been ages. It has been absolutely ages. It's been at least an hour and 7 minutes. I hope you didn't miss me too much. Made a quick change. Got to look professional. Don't want to be wearing the same thing for 2 shows running, do we? This, you may recognise the strip. Not that I'm going to strip, let me just say. And it wasn't me. It wasn't me at Wembley the other night. You remember the strip from this gentleman, Mr. Alan Smith, indeed. And for those of you that missed him, at 5 o'clock, we did a live in conversation with show with him. And we had him on for about 55 minutes, and he talked about Alvechurch, Leicester. We talked about Leicester as it is today. We touched on Arsenal, his England career, replacing, I nearly said Casper then, replacing Gary Lineker for his last game. It turned out to be his last game as well. FIFA, how he got onto FIFA, and of course, working at Sky. And I think we even touched on... the European Super League and the Big Six as well. It was a great interview. It's on the tube now, and if you want to listen to it, it's also on the podcast on Spotify, Anchor, Google, all of them, Amazon, and I'm running out. But let's get back to this show, because we're on Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube. Please remember, go and press me buttons. I love to have my little buttons pressed. Twitter at Leicester TID, Facebook Leicester Till I Die the group. We are having a special show again. It's the Give Me 5.
Give Me 5 from Leicester Till I Die TV.
Join in as we look at the good, the bad, and even the ugly.
Of Leicester City.
With Chris and Chums.
Well, I'm good and bad. Hello, Craig.
Hello, I'll finish off the trilogy there. Bring me in.
Hey, we've already had one legend on the channel today. We've got to have a second one now.
Yeah, who have you got?
I'll bring him on later.
Yeah, good man.
How are you, sir? Got over the other night.
Just about. I think it's disappointment, like everyone else, and but then you take it in with everything that we've done to get there. It's progress, I guess, isn't it? Getting to a major final. So
5 years ago, we couldn't even beat Costa Rica. This year we couldn't even beat Scotland. No, some things just don't change, do they?
I remember Costa Rica beating Scotland.
I don't know. More possibly they have.
Yeah.
Who knows?
No, it did. It happened.
Oh, they
It
have
happened in a
they?
World Cup.
They
Yeah,
have.
in a World Cup.
Wow. Right. Goalkeepers.
Yes.
Young man.
Yeah, hands up
Leicester.
to goalkeeper.
Yes, exactly. Leicester, we've had quite a few good ones down the years, haven't we?
I think you could say we've probably had more than our fair share of decent keepers, haven't we? You know,
Yes.
we've not want to preempt anything, but we've had some world class keepers, you know,
Yes.
and not many clubs can say that they've had more than one world class keeper in their midst.
You are, of course, and I'm not going to give anything away here, but of course, I'm sure you are referring to, of course, the one and only Kevin Pressman.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly who I meant.
Yes.
Yeah, Kevin Pressman. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we've got to have the odd one thrown in there, one bad apple thrown in the carrier. So it's give me 5. So what we're going to do, we've got 12 goalkeepers, because I was looking, since we kind of started as a club 1892, we've had about 15 what you would call regular goalkeepers. We've obviously had a lot more than that. So what we've done is I gave you 12. Well, I gave you 10, and you added 10, and you added 2 more on because you're a sucker for punishment. What you've done is you've gone away. We're going to get those 12 down to your top 5 in the 5 Barstool Challenge a la X Factor, and then from there you will tell us who your all-time favourite Leicester City goalkeeper is. I tell you what, I can hardly hold my excitement in. But I'm gonna. But then again, I think that's my belt. I need to loosen it.
Yeah, it's been tough, to be honest. It's been tough, and I've changed my mind a few times. So I've got an idea now. I've got it in front of me, but who knows? It may change as we chat.
Well, at least I'm safe with you because I know that you haven't put sort of a centre forward in there. Well, who knows? Who knows? There may be one. When it's talking to goalkeepers. Hello, TM. We had a couple off you, didn't we, down the years?
Sorry, I just lost you a minute there, Chris.
Oh, I'll just say we've had a few goalies from Spurs down the years, haven't we? So there may be one popping up later. We shall see. But hello, TM. Thank you for joining us. Right, so let's bring the old chart in. Here we go. And who shall we start with? Well, let's start with this gentleman here, Mr. Ian Andrews. Are you with me, Craig? No, we've... Oh, great. We have lost Craig. Well, we're doing a one-to-one with Craig, and you lose Craig. That's kind of awkward here. Well, let me just run through the goalkeepers for you. We've got Ian Andrews, like I say. We've got Gordon Banks there. We've got Ian Walker, the reference there for TM. I quite liked Ian Walker. Casey Keller, who remembers Casey Keller? Love the man. Schmeichel, of course. You can't not love Schmeichel. He's there as well. Kevin Poole, you may remember Kevin Poole, great goalkeeper, great shot stopper, as was quoted in the playoff final. Mark Wallington. Now, he was the goalkeeper when I started going down to watch Leicester. He was the goalkeeper that I grew up with, if you like. That was my first goalkeeper at Leicester. Great guy, banter with the crowd like you wouldn't believe. Really, really good. And was Going Bold? I do believe we used to sing about him going bold. Paul Cooper. Yeah, I'd forgotten about Paul. That was one of Craig's additions. But yes, he spent a couple of ex-Ipswich, I believe. Spent a couple of seasons with us. I'm still waiting to see if Craig's coming back. He isn't at the moment. So we've then also got, of course, Peter Shilton. Who remembers Peter Shilton? can you believe, and I'm sure I'm treading on Craig's toes a little bit here, but that will teach him for going. But Peter Shilton, we got rid of a world-class goalkeeper for Peter Shilton. Talking of world-class, he's back. From outer space. Just turn around now. Just wipe that look up off your face. Right. Let me just finish running through them. We've got Tim Flowers, my favourite goalkeeper of all time, Zoko Kalic. What a man. What a man. Went on to play for Italian giants. We'll come to that later. And, of course, the man himself, Peggy. Who could forget Peggy? And who could forget Craig, even when he goes? Are you all right now, sir?
I'm good. I had a backup plan, just in case.
You did mention that you are having trouble. You know, you need to change your internet company. I think
Yeah.
But anyway,
word.
You have a word. Have a word. Right, Ian Andrews, sir. Tell us about Ian Andrews.
So Ian Andrews is an interesting one because he sort of came through the ranks, didn't he? And he was number one keeper during quite a successful period for us in the top flight as well. You know, he's not a Premier League keeper at the time because it didn't exist, but between 1983 and 1987, he was our number one keeper and we were in the top flight for that whole time. But I think he's one of those keepers that's never really got I don't think he's particularly well remembered, you know, and I don't mean remembered in a bad way. I think people just forget about him. The fact that he was number one keeper for a good 4 seasons. He had England under 21 cap while he was with us. Never quite made it to the top level and the full squad. But I don't know what it was with Ian Andrews. He never really went on to do anything great in the game afterwards. You know, he was here between 82 and 88, and to be honest, his best years were here. But a good, solid, you know, keeper who wouldn't really let you down. I can't remember too many games where it was an error of his. I just think he was a good, solid pro of a keeper.
I mean, looking at this, he actually had 3 spells with us. He came back in as late as 2002. I mean, that wasn't that long ago. But I think when we do, believe it or not, guys, we do both actually research this a little bit. I know you probably find that hard to believe, but we do. But you know, he's one of those you're thinking like, oh God, yeah, he's one of those, isn't he?
He is. He is when you start looking through, you know, and it's weird, isn't it? Because goalkeepers, you know, are usually in the sticks for quite a period of time. If they're settled in, they're here for a few years. So when you look down the history of goalkeepers of Leicester, there's not that many compared with outfield players. I know that sounds obvious, but you know, you don't have to go that far back until you get into the sort of greats that we're going to talk about later. But even within that, you know, he's a guy who often gets forgotten.
Yeah, and we've had a few. We may come on to these that have sort of come to us towards the twilight of the career, shall we say, to put it politely. Yeah. But I mean, he's going to go into your top 5 simply because nobody else is in there yet.
Yeah.
So we'll put him in there.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to tell him to enjoy his moment.
I wonder what you could mean. I'm going to come on now to somebody you asked to go in. And again, I'm going to be honest with you. When you said, what about? Yeah. And I went, oh my God, yes. Mr. Paul Cooper.
Yeah, Paul Cooper he is another one, isn't he? He wasn't here that long, to be honest, 87 to 89. But he had 2 decent seasons with us, 70 appearances.
He doesn't even make it onto the Wikipedia list of Leicester City goalkeepers.
You know what? There's not a lot of information about Paul Cooper in general. And when they do talk about him, it's about his time at Ipswich. I mean, 575 appearances for one club in Ipswich. And then for whatever reason, you know, he found himself down the pecking order as he got towards the end of his career. And then Brian Hamilton another short-lived of our managers, who used to play with Paul Cooper at Ipswich, decided to bring him over to us. And as I say, he had a fantastic reputation for saving penalties. He was
didn't he? Yes.
Seasons just within his time at Ipswich, over 2 seasons, he faced 17 penalties. So God knows what their defenders were doing, but 17 penalties over 2 seasons, and he saved 13 of them, which is ridiculous. You know, what won't we get for him at the Euros? But yeah, and
don't remind me. Don't bring that up.
So again, another workmanlike and goalkeeper. And we talk about goalkeepers being big. Paul Cooper was 5'11". Now, I'm going to put myself out there. That's not tall for a goalkeeper.
No,
5'11", but good enough to make 575 appearances for Ipswich and another 70 for us before he went to another couple of clubs. So a keeper who doesn't deserve to be forgotten when you're talking about Leicester keepers.
No, like you say, he was a good shot stopper. So he's going to just pop in there for a second. We're going to say hello to Ankit, who says, "Wow, you guys are back to back."
I'm not Alan Smith.
I think Ankit should have gone to Specsavers, to be honest with you. I like to watch these serials on television, like the Netflix series. I like to watch those back to back, but then I can't see the TV screen. Right, moving quickly on. I think. I tell you what, I'm going to go. I was going to save him till later, but why not? My favourite goalkeeper, probably for Leicester, Dracula. Old Zelko Kalic. Yeah.
I mean, 3 appearances. Now, feel free to tell me if I've got that wrong. But 3 appearances.
Believe it or not, he's not on the list again.
No, 3 appearances, and one of those he didn't touch the ball. Now, anybody who knows anything about Leicester City's fairly recent history in the going back years and years will know that Kalic had one moment of glory, and if you can have a moment of glory without touching the ball,
I'll win it for you, boss. Don't worry.
Yeah, playoff final 1996, entering the last minute of extra time, and Martin O'Neill decides that he needs to bring on big Zelko Kalic and his wingspan of an albatross to go in goal for the penalties. And I think it's safe to say that goalkeeper at the time, Kevin Poole, who will probably get mentioned in dispatches at some point, wasn't best pleased at it, at coming off by the looks on his face. But Martin decided that the president, very much like Donnarumma for Italy the other night, you see a big guy in between the sticks on the penalty shootout, and it makes it a little bit harder than it was if you were facing someone a bit smaller. So Martin put him on, but we all know, with virtually the last kick of the game, Steve Claridge shinned. Well, I don't think he likes telling people he shinned it in, but put one into the top corner past a bemused Nigel Martin, and as everyone knows, that took us to the Premier League. Referee blew the whistle to kick off again, and then promptly blew it for the end of the game. So poor Kalic was a winner, but contributed very, very little, shall we say.
But he went on, didn't he? Like I said before, to play for the Giants at AC Milan.
He did. He was supposed to go to Wolves with when Steve Corica went to Wolves, but because of his the few games that he's actually played, he couldn't get a work permit. So even though he was moving between clubs in the same country, he couldn't get a work permit to go to Wolves. So he had to go back to Australia. Then he became international keeper and got a few more caps, and managed to end up with AC Milan in Serie A for a good number of seasons. So he had a decent career.
Who knew? Who knew? Who knew? Well, we have to put him in for a moment. Somehow, I just get an inkling he may not make it, still be there at the end. But
to be honest, he's been on that board longer than he was on the pitch at Wembley.
I'll keep talking, try and make it so. Going to say good evening to Dan. Thanks for joining us, Dan. He said, glad he's Turf Moorhouse TV there, Burnley site. I'm on it tomorrow night at 6 when we're doing another Euro review. Honestly, I'm going to be slitting my wrist by the end of the week at this rate. Just all these bad memories. Pop over to his channel. He's a good laugh. He really is. And it's fantastic. And thanks for coming in, Dan. And he says there, he's glad he doesn't do this on his channel. It'd be like he give me 6 with his extra finger. Well, these Northerners, But I did always wonder why Kate always seemed to be happy when she was on the show. Now we know, Dan. Now we know. And good evening to Rich. Again, another channel there that supports us. Rich Sports there, Man United content, but also a lot of other content as well. So well worth tuning in. Rich, you've come in here on a program where we're talking about goalkeepers, and I think that's very brave of you when we're thinking about goalkeepers and penalties. I dread to bring that up again, and far be it from me to say that De Gea can't score a penalty, but well done, you're welcome. Welcome along. And Pete, hi Pete, thanks for joining us. You're welcome. And of course Ankit again, RC Bain, Chelsea Fan TV, another great channel. I know it's Chelsea, but he's a nice guy. Go and give him a watch. It is good. Right. I think we've done all the hellos. All I can say about De Gea.
Unbelievable, Jeff.
I remember the days when Man U had a goalkeeper called Paddy Roach. That was going back a bit. I don't think they were renowned for their goalkeepers down the years. Man United have a few decent ones, but not their greatest position.
Yeah. They had somebody called Peter that wasn't bad, wasn't he? He gave birth to a great keeper as well.
Yeah, not sure what happened to him.
No, not at all. It's like I said to Alan Smith earlier. Whatever did happen to Gary Lineker?
Yeah.
But who shall we go for? Who do you fancy next?
Let's go for one of the big boys.
No, stop talk. I've told you, keep it under your hat. Don't say that about me. Your missus will get to hear, and
Yeah.
Who's the big boy for anybody?
Let's go for the first one that you've got there.
Gordon Banks, Mr. Banks, Banks of England.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say that's not already been said? I've got one story about Gordon Banks that I'll come to shortly, but I mean, a goalkeeper who won the World Cup while he was a Leicester player. I mean, I think I can count on the fingers of one finger how many we've had to do that, to be honest. And 1959 to 1967 with Leicester, and he was named. I did, as I say, I didn't just throw this all together. There was a bit of research. He was named FIFA Goalkeeper of the Year for 6 straight seasons. That's not just the Football League or whatever. FIFA. No. Goalkeeper of the Year for 6 straight seasons from 1966 to 1971. He was Footballer of the Year in 1972, which obviously he was at Stoke then. Not many goalkeepers managed to get Footballer of the Year, particularly when you could say that it was a few years after his heroics in the World Cup, and obviously that save from Pele in the 1970 World Cup that is forever being shown. Was OBE as well, and the only thing he won with Leicester was a League Cup. The first time that we'd won the League Cup, I think, when we beat Stoke, actually.
Legs? Was that over 2 legs?
It was 2 legs. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was the last one that was over 2 legs. Now, back in the day, now obviously Gordon Banks' career was brought to a halt by a bad car crash. And he eventually lost the sight in one eye, which that was it. That's okay for most Man United goalkeepers, one eye, but for the level that we were playing at that time, then you you sort of need two eyes. So anyway, so I used to play football going back. I've mentioned a few times, and this was during a period when it was at Sunday league football I was playing, and we had a little Irish guy who was the manager, and he only had one arm. He sort of lost it just below the elbow, and we used to have a few parties back in them day, and he was always turn up, and he was always drunk, and you can imagine what he was like with his little with his arm having a go at the girls. But he told us this story that when Gordon Banks was injured in the car crash, he wrote to the club and offered to donate his eye to Gordon. So he could continue to play.
No.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he wrote to them and said, "I'm willing to have my eye removed and given to Gordon Banks." But they declined.
I'm kind of not surprised. Really.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. But
I tell you what, there's a few clubs in the so-called top six that would probably accept that these days.
Yeah, they probably would do. But But no, he offered to donate his eye. But I mean, what a goalkeeper! One of those for. I mean, I never saw him play live, and I'm probably not sure anybody who's watching us actually saw him play live. But you only have to look at those things. I mean, you don't get FIFA Goalkeeper of the Year for 6 straight seasons if you're not a gatekeeper.
And although he had the accident, he did carry on for a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I think it became pretty.
Did he go to America?
Yeah, he did, didn't he, for a while? I'm not sure. Was it the Cosmos or whatever? I'm not sure. When the first sort of wave of American.
I think that was after his accident, though, and you could say probably at that level. No disrespect, did you? He was probably good at that level. I mean, Reese here. All I would say, Reese, is really, really don't annoy Craig, because Craig's setting the questions for you when you come on as the Man United fan in the quiz. So just be careful. But apparently United have had 5 great goalkeepers. Harry Gregg, Stepney, God, I remember being Stepney.
That's
Peter
Alex
Schmeichel, It is Alex, isn't it? Yes, Alex Stepney.
But saying that, we're not Man U fans, are we? What we're doing?
No, and that makes it great for the questions that you're going to be asking him.
I'll pop that in the quiz.
and just set them a little bit lower than possibly you dumb them down a little bit here.
Maybe I'll just have 10 players and ask him what their first name is.
In fairness to Reese, he is Scottish. You know what Scottish is like.
And he's a lot younger than us. So,
yes. But you think. And because as we were just talking about Graham Banks, I mean, but hey, Scottish, let's say they know sweet FA about goalkeepers, don't they? We're going to come on to this later, Reese. Who was better in goal, Peter Shilton or Gordon Banks? Well, Ian is different, but you got Alex. Ian was his understudy, probably. Here we go. So the Man United yearbook for under 10s. Get your questions from there for him. Reece, you know I'm joshing. But of course, he made a very good point there, Reese. That with the Peter Shilton, because of course we let Gordon Banks go.
Yeah.
So we could keep Peter Shilton.
Exactly. It's that thing, isn't it? Sometimes you find this with younger players, I think, more so these days. When you see, why did you let X, Y, and Z go, who look to be like a promising player?
Yeah. And
it's usually because there's an even better one coming through the ranks that you don't want to block the path of. And this was the thing with Gordon Banks. We knew, I mean, at the time that he went 67. So, I mean, he still went on and had 5 years of winning FIFA Goalkeeper of the Year after he left us. So he had some good years in him. But the people at the club clearly saw the potential of Peter Shilton and the longevity of Peter Shilton. So they decided.
Right, in fairness, they got it right, didn't they?
Yeah, and so they let him go to the heady heights of Stoke.
Yeah. I mean, this does, you can probably tell this hurts me, that Stoke have got a statue for him and we don't.
Yeah. I think with Gordon Banks, I mean, we'll come on to Peter Shilton later. I think it's even more that certain players are revered a lot more. At least Gordon Banks has a suite named after him at the King Power.
Yes.
Peter Shilton, I'm not even sure that he's reflected there at all. Maybe he's got a name on one of the bars. I'm not sure, but anyway, we'll come on to Peter. But yeah, you're right. He's a legend of the club.
Yeah, and they're all crying a little bit like worried now. You know, Turf Moor, Craig be nice to me on Monday. Have a memory like Chris. Luckily, my bladder is still as strong, mate. You don't know me. My bladder is not strong at all. I'm sat here with a catheter. I tell you.
I've already got half of your questions done, Dan. So maybe I'll go easier on the other half.
I'm not taking the piss either when I say that. But and in fairness, Craig did ask me if I did want to check the questions, but I trust Craig, and I know they're going to be really, really hard for you because I asked him to. Now, Peter said here, Mark Wallington, I was saying while you were off emptying your bladder, you say it was your internet, but I think it was your bladder. Mark Wallington was probably the goalkeeper I best remember from when I started to go and follow Leicester, and great banter with the crowd. Yeah,
he's the first one I really remember watching play. He was the keeper when I started going, and yeah, I remember I was again looking back, and I think Gary Lineker talked about Mark Wallington on one of his top 10 shows that he does with Alan Shearer and Micah Richards, and he talked about Mark Wallington, about how he was the joker in the changing room at the time, and he said he would often put the ball down for a goal kick, and then he used to place it centrally, so rather than going to the side, he would run back into the net before he'd taken his goal kick. He would often pretend that he'd got his boot caught up in the net during the middle of the game, just for a bit of banter. A fantastic goalkeeper, 1971 to 1985. And obviously the goalkeeper, one of the greatest games that you remember Mark Wallington being involved in was the 5-2 Shrewsbury FA Cup tie when he was injured and was replaced by Alan Young, Steve Lynex and Alan Young. All the other way around. But yeah, I mean,
none of whom are in the chart today.
No, they're not. And he won the Division 1 championship with us in 1980. And I made a note here because he made the best save I've ever seen live. I've got to say, it was an away game. I had to check this back. It was an away game in 1994 at Stoke, at the old Victoria ground, and I remember standing behind the goal. They had back
freezing
in cold. Some people watching this may not know that we used to have to stand up at football, and there were a few grounds where the steps went down below the level of the pitch, so your eyesight was quite low down. And I was quite close to the front, but I was probably on a eye level with Wallington behind the goal. And it was late on. I think we were winning 1-0 late on, and a one of those skiddy pitches, wet night in Stoke, and this ball was past him. From ahead, it was past him, and it was in the back of the net. But no, somehow he managed to get himself down, throw his hand. The ball was behind him virtually. Throw his hand down and scoop it away. It was just phenomenal. 1994, and I've never forgotten that save. It was just unbelievable. A really underrated keeper, I think. 460 appearances for us.
And how many were consecutive? Because it was the injury in the quarter-final of a cup against Shrewsbury that broke his run of appearances.
Yeah, I think there's a club record, isn't it, of consecutive appearances. And he didn't really have the athletic stature of one of these sort of modern lithe goalkeepers. There was a few back in them days. I can remember the likes at the same time, probably a little bit before. You got Tommy Lawrence at Liverpool, who was a big guy, but that's what they were like. Neville Southall was a bit of a chunky guy, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
But yeah, Wallington. Wallington was during that period of time, he was probably Mr. Leicester City. He was Mr. Dependable. You knew that, he rarely put a foot wrong.
And like I say, he had a great relationship with the crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, we I can remember often, singing and questioning his, amount of hair that he'd got left.
Yeah.
He'd always turn around and go, shh. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He had that before it became, probably not many goalkeepers have, even now. As much as we love Schmeichel, it's been that long since I've been to a game with the lockdown. But yeah, I love the guy. I'm not going to lie. I absolutely love the guy. And he so deserves his moment of glory in there. And whether he stays or not is obviously up to yourself. But let's go over the pond before Trump comes on and says stop the count. Let's bring our American representative in today, Mr. Casey Keller. Yes,
Casey Keller. Yeah. Again, Casey Keller. I just remember being linked with success. Really, 125 appearances for the club between #96 and '99. Was in goal when we won the League Cup in 1997. I think the two games against Middlesbrough. Number one Leicester keeper for under the O'Neill, I think, period when we had 3 consecutive top 10 finishes, and he was the guy behind the defence during that period. And again, I can't remember. I was regular there then. So I saw him play all the time, and again, a very, very dependable keeper. And it was only, I think, because of the next keeper who was coming through, or who they had their eye on, that we let him go. I think he sort of went out of contract. But a really great shot stopper. He was one of those earlier sort of sweeper keepers as well. He liked to sweep up and come out and clear behind his defenders, and really solid keeper. And he was a keeper I really, really liked. I can't hear you, Chris. Yeah, I can't hear you, but just going back to Casey Keller, I remember during that period of time of the 3 top 10 finishes that we had under Martin O'Neill. And I remember I used to go down to the ground. I was a season ticket holder at the ground, and I remember one particular day that I was walking to the ground, and I'm sure Casey Keller was playing, and we'd had these consecutive top 10 finishes in the Premier League. And I still do, but I went down with my son, and I remember putting my arm around him and saying, remember these times, enjoy these times of us being a top 10 Premier League player, because these times are not going to happen. They're not going to last. This is what I would call the glory years. So make the most of it while you can. 3 top 10 finishes I thought was as good as it was ever going to get for Leicester City. Obviously, we know there were some lows, followed by some fantastic highs to follow. But Casey Keller was at the hub of that successful period, and O'Neill trusted him as his number one for during all of that period. He was the bedrock that the defence was built on.
I'm back. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yep, I can.
You can. It keeps that. You went crackly and I went quiet. And Andrew, I can throw you out here. Enjoy the There's too many critics out there. That's what it is. Thank God that didn't happen in the previous show. Casey Keller, definitely very underrated, and I apologize because I'd gone off, my sound went as well, but 100, I don't know, you may well have said this, 102 caps for America.
I mean, he was when he got in that team, he was an ever-present, really, wasn't he? He was and I think that helped, having, particularly in those days, if you'd got something from the Premier League on your CV, that elevated you as a goalkeeper, particularly in the States at that time. As I say, 3 consecutive top 10 finishes and in the Premier League on your CV is not bad for any keeper.
Now then, your first decision, because I have a feeling for what you're saying. Is he going to go into the top 5?
Yeah, he's in there.
And the question is, of course, who comes out of the top 5?
Well, I think to be honest, he's been on the board long enough. He needs to go back on the bench. I'm sorry, Kalach, it's time.
Oh, boo, hiss. I just think you're a horrible human being. I really do.
Do any of the others deserve to leave before him? I don't think so.
It's just my favourite, my favourite. And I say the games that you played, like I say, if the opposition had garlic round the neck, it was easier to score. But anyway, let's go to TM. I don't know if TM is still with us, but Mr. Ian Walker, who kind of had possibly more success than before he came to us than at us, but. Go on, turn back Ian Walker then.
So Ian Walker had a fantastic career at Spurs. I think he had something like 400 games at Spurs. Came to us and played between 2001 2005. Clocked up 156 appearances, which, to be honest, was more than I thought. But I don't think that it was the most successful period of his career, shall we say. In fact, doing the research, you're reminded of one or two of the incidents that unfortunately surrounded him. I think there was one shocking game that we had down at the King Power, or the Walker Stadium, as it probably was at the time. And as it was written down, the report said, in this game, Walker put up such a poor display in the match that he was confronted by a Leicester fan who ran onto the pitch telling him he didn't think he was fit to be a Premiership player.
Yes. I mean, can you imagine these days? I mean,
I know. I do remember that. All of a sudden, I think the ball's down the other end. All of a sudden, you've got Walker squaring up to a fan who's on the pitch.
Yes.
How crap he is.
Yeah. But I mean, he made 4 appearances for England. I think they were under Sven, so you can sort of kind of work out what you want about how much they were worth. Because I think you didn't stay in the Premier League if you hadn't got a cap while Sven was manager. But looking at him, does he make it into your top 5?
Well, I remember just one other thing on him that again, it's easily available on the internet, that he scored a bizarre own goal as well in a game against Bolton Wanderers, where it was a long shot that had gone into him, and he had it under control, and I think everybody turned away and walked away, going back up the pitch ready for him to kick it out. For some reason, he managed to roll over and throw it into his own net. I don't think that really.
Was that right? Well, did he go over arm?
No, he was on the floor and he held it and he decided to roll towards the goal to get up rather than away from it, and somehow managed to dislodge the ball and sort of threw it into the net. But and thing is, though, we released him because we went through a bad period at that time. I think we were having a few problems during the period he was there, and we couldn't afford his contract, and that's the reason we let him go in the end. But does he make the top 5?
Does he?
Just can you put those back up there for me, Chris?
Sorry, I thought I'd. There we go. Sorry, I thought I'd clicked it. Yes. So, does he?
Yes, he can go in instead of Mr. Cooper. Purely on the number of games that he was there, and he did play, 156 games for us, so I think he deserves to be on the board for at least a short while, shall we say?
Sure, we shall indeed. Mr. Peter Shilton, the gentleman that dislodged. TM says they're not in the top 5 then. Well, we've looked at one goalkeeper who scored a goal in his own net. Peter Shilton, of course, one of I don't know whether any other Leicester Schmeichel could claim to have scored, but these were in the days before goalkeepers went up. Of course, Peter Shilton did score in the opposition net.
Yeah. I mean, Shilton, I'm thinking, did I see Shilton play? And I might well have done for the first game that I actually went. I mean, he was here when Banks left. And I think it was around the sort of late 60s, early 70s when my uncle took me to my first game, which was against Cardiff. I think it was a 0-0, so he clearly kept a clean sheet. But I didn't see him play live that much, to be honest. So again, it's everything that you've seen on TV. And to be honest, he was never off TV, was he? To be honest,
No.
And yeah, he did. He went to Leicester, and he did end up at Nottingham Forest and won the Champions League or the European Cup, as it was.
Did he not go to Southampton first?
Yeah, I think he went to a few clubs, didn't he? And then ended up at Forest. Yeah. But I mean, this is a guy that, again, you know, you can't take everything that Wikipedia says as gospel.
No.
But they have Peter Shilton as still holding the world record for the number of first-class appearances at 1,387.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just phenomenal, isn't it? I mean, I think he was 40 when he was playing in Italia 90. I think he was he was carrying on 10 times in the PFA Team of the Year, including 9 years in a row. PFA Players Player of the Year in 1978, which I think was the year that he won the European Cup with Forest. Yeah, and again, you know, it's one thing winning the Player of the Year like Gordon Banks did, but for the players to pick a goalkeeper as their Player of the Year says a hell of a lot about the guy, and obviously a local lad as well.
Yes, he was. His dad was a hairdresser.
Yeah.
Whose barber shop, believe it or not, was called Shilton's.
Yeah,
used
and
to go
there was the famous story about him always wanting to be a goalkeeper when he was a kid, and asking his dad to put up something in the house so he could basically hang like a monkey from the bar that they put in between a door frame, just so he could stretch his arms and his limbs. Wow. So much did he want to be a goalkeeper.
Now the funny thing is that Peter Shilton replaced Gordon Banks at Leicester. Yeah. Gordon Banks then went on to Stoke, and I'd forgotten this.
He went to Stoke, didn't
Peter Shilton went to Stoke, and then to Nottingham Forest, and then Southampton afterwards, and then Derby County, and then Plymouth, and then Wimbledon, and then Bolton, then Coventry, then West Ham. It was up to 1997. He was still playing. He managed Plymouth Argyle, but not very well, if my memory serves me right. But he was there a couple of seasons. But I mean, I think he holds the record for the most, certainly for the goalkeeper. And I don't know whether it's just for England or for any international goalkeeper. 125 appearances, and he would have made a lot more had it not been for the Ray Clements situation. Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was Ron Greenwood at the time. I'm not sure who the keeper. Who the keeper was, but it was back in those days that we didn't have a decisive England manager. You know, thank God those days have gone. So he sort of switched between Clements and Shilton. So Shilton would have got another 50 caps at least. I would have thought maybe not more. He could have gone on to.
But in fairness, Clements wasn't. You know, he wasn't a bad goalie himself, was he? You know,
no, he wasn't. But to be honest, you know, and I know I was a Leicester fan, but growing up, he wasn't playing really for Leicester when I was starting to watch football. But for me, there was never a choice between Shilton and Clements. It was Shilton all day long. He had that presence.
Reece asked this earlier, and you know, please feel free to get your own back when he does come on the quiz show. Who was better in goal, Peter Shilton or Gordon Banks?
You know, Reece, I think it's to be honest, I think unless you saw a lot of them play or saw them play a lot, I think it's almost impossible to say, because particularly in those days, you got the highlights that were shown. You know, it's not like today that you see 90 minutes of every game, so you see all the bad bits along with the good bits. In them days, you got highlights, and they only showed the highlights. It would be almost impossible to divide them. To be honest, I would say Shilton edges it, maybe. But that's purely because of what I saw. But the more I've read about Gordon Banks, you know, I've gained sort of respect for him, and like I say, that FIFA goalkeeper of the year for 6 years in a row is just ridiculous. So
I actually a couple of years ago went to see Jeff Hurst give a talk. One of these evening withs, and he spoke so highly of Gordon Banks. It was, you know, amazing. And for me, I'd probably, as much as Peter Shilton was a good goalkeeper, I'd have to give it to Banks, just edging it, because I mean, if not just for that save against Pele in the 70 World Cup, you know, that was one.
There was a save that Peter Shilton did when he was playing for England against Scotland. I think it was It's weird how certain things stick with you. It was 1974, England-Scotland from Kenny Dalglish, and he clawed one out of the top corner. And that stuck with me for years and years. Well, I still remember it now. It stuck with me forever. It was one of probably.
You're freezing again a little bit, Craig.
Stuck with me.
Yeah,
I was just rebooting the putting the power.
You are doing the old Peter Crouch there. I mean, Andrew says here Shilton got out jumped by a midget. Well, yeah, but it was it was the midget's arm that went up like another 2 foot. In fairness, and yeah, I mean, I can never forgive him for that. I'm sorry. I know everybody eulogized over him recently when he passed, and rest in peace. But yeah, he was a cheat, I'm afraid. Reece says, I totally understand your answer. As a young Man United fan, I have rewatched classic matches of our Busby Babes era, Robbo, Whiteside. So I totally understand your response, Craig. Yep. Yeah. So does I'm not sure whether Craig is still with us or not. Hello, Earth calling Craig.
I'm still here. If you can hear me.
Yeah, you keep freezing and going. Quickly, while we've got you, does Peter Shilton make it into the top 5? Yeah, you're going again.
Yes,
definitely. Who are you going? Who are you going to take out?
Ian Andrews.
Ian Andrews, right. Craig, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him up there and take Ian Andrews out. I'm just going to go to a quick break and explain a few things. You may want to reboot while you're off because you literally are freezing up. Yeah. All right. Be back in a bit and we'll finish it off. And guys, we will be straight back after this.
Hi, Alan Smith here. Be sure to watch and listen to Chris on Leicester Till I Die TV. You can also subscribe on YouTube and various social media channels. Up the Foxes!
It is. And don't forget, guys, starting on Thursday, I don't know whether Craig is rebooting. Let me just get him to leave, and then he can hopefully reboot and come back in. Don't forget, starting on Thursday with Matt, the Leicester fan. Hopefully he'll be setting a very high standard, but we're going to have the Premier League quiz. And basically, we're going to start with a Leicester. We might have a few more Leicester fans pop on. And then we have got, just to let you know, we've got Dan, who is a Burnley fan, coming on. We've got Tommy, who's a Tottenham fan. Yeah, that'll be fun. Reece, who's a Man United fan, who's going to go off and do his research on what Man United players are called. And Doug, who is a Liverpool fan. So we've got some top teams there, and Burnley as well. and come on, and they're going to ask. We're going to answer some questions. They're going to do 10 questions on their own team. 5 questions. They're worth 2 points each. 5 questions on the Premier League. They're worth 3, and then you've got 7. You haven't got 7 points at all. You've got 5 points for the 5 questions each on Leicester City. Now, something very funny has happened here because we've got 2 Craigs. Just while he's trying to sort that out, we'll just do this.
It's the Big Fat Football Quiz with Leicester Till I Die TV.
So you think you know your football?
Well, let's see.
Oh, this is going as smooth as crunchy nut peanut butter. I'll tell you, it's it's almost professional. It's almost professional. I never remember Dickie Davies having this trouble on World of Sport. I really don't. let's bring in Leicester Till I Die's answer to Cammy. Are you back with us, Craig?
It's unbelievable, Chris.
You've plugged your lights in. You seem to be working. So I had to move you out then because, like I say,
That's
you literally you were doing the Let It Go dance. So we're bringing in there. We've put him in, and he's gone in there. Peter he's gone into the top 5. Ian Andrews has bowed out along to join Paul Cooper and my favourite Zelko Kalach. Let us go for. I thought let's have Casper in. I mean, you said earlier that at the time Mark Wallington was Mr. Leicester. Yeah. Surely that's going to be Casper these days, hasn't it?
I think it is. I mean, he's almost like more than a goalkeeper, isn't he? He's sort of he commands that respect, I think, on and off the pitch. The way he conducts himself. He was so closely linked with the family when with Vichai, and obviously was the guy who was around when the terrible accident happened, and who was there trying to help get him out. And I think it's probably harsh to say that he went up in everybody's estimation then, but I think you saw some maturity and you saw the man. More than just the goalkeeper, which is the Casper that we knew at the time, and I think he's gone on to show that again. The way that he conducted himself in the Euros recently with what happened with Christian Eriksen, and he's a proud man, isn't he? And you've got to give him credit for he's had to live in the shadow of his dad virtually his whole life, and I know that. He hates the comparisons, and it still happens now, doesn't it? He'll come out with his arms stretched to save a goal, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, just like his dad." Still, they're still saying that, and so he's had to fight. And this is a guy who wanted to play football so much that he was prepared to go down the leagues. He was at Manchester City, and he went down to Notts County. And then
with Sven.
With Sven, I'm sure Sven didn't go for the money though.
No. Allegedly. No. I get the lawyers on the phone again. No. How can you even suggest that?
I know, Mr. Bird. Apparently in Nottingham there's quite a high percentage of young Swedish ladies as well. So whether that swayed it, I don't know. So he went down and then worked his way back up through Leeds, and then ended up at O'Hare. I mean, we signed him in 2011. And
did he not want to come at first? Have I got that right?
He didn't. Yeah, he didn't want to leave. Yeah. He didn't want to leave Leeds. He was basically, forced out the door, as it seemed. He wasn't happy at all at being coming here, and I think it was quite a hard task for us to actually get him through the door, but I think it's safe to say that it's worked out well for both parties.
I think so, and he was for many years regularly linked with. Whoops, hello. Regularly linked
for you.
Regularly linked with I told you not to drink on camera. Regularly linked with his dad's club, Manchester United. I don't think now I can't see him going anywhere. I think he'll be with us until, and then he'll probably even go on and join the coaching staff.
It wouldn't surprise me. He seems to be the kind of guy. It's his character, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
I think he, if you've got the character that he's shown throughout his career to be a success and continue to want to be a success, I think he's in an environment where he's respected, not just amongst the players but amongst the staff. I think he's almost like the unofficial spokesman. I know we sort of disagree about whether he should be on the field captain, but I think he's definitely a club captain for sure. And
I would certainly not argue with that.
Yeah, and but no, I mean, if you look at again his record, and this sounds weird, doesn't it? Since Casper has come to Leicester City, he's won the Premier League and the FA Cup. I mean, it still sounds crazy, to be honest.
It is, yes.
Yeah, Danish Footballer of the Year 4 times he's been voted. In the FIFA Best Goalkeeper, that obviously, admittedly, Gordon Banks won 6 years. He came third in 2018. So, again, raising himself on a world stage. And let's not forget, he cost us the princely sum of 1.25 million.
Not a bad signing.
No.
I'm going to ask you this. Reese thought he was asking you a hard question earlier, and to be honest with you, I may well have asked you this before, so do forgive me if I have, and you might be guessing what's coming here. But obviously, we let Gordon Banks go so we could, keep Peter Shilton because we could see where he was going. Caspar Schmeichel, Danny Ward.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Based on his performances in the Euros, I think you've got to say that Danny Ward is almost getting to the value of what we paid for him. Yeah. Which seemed a hell of a lot of money for a reserve keeper, but
it didn't?
Yeah. But no, I mean, Casper's. I think it's almost sad to start thinking ahead to the point where you've got to start thinking about Casper being replaced. Is he one of those guys who's going to step down when his own levels start to drop? Because we know that he's his own worst critic. He works so hard to maintain his levels. Someone at some point, some poor manager, whether it's Brendan, whether it's someone else, is at a point going to have to make a decision when it's Casper's time to come, but time to go. But for me, that's not going to be for a few seasons yet.
I mean, he's 34 now, but we do know goalkeepers, they do have that longer life, don't they?
They do, and he looks after himself. You can see that. He's, as I say, I think Casper will know if his performance levels are dropping before any of us do.
Yes.
We've seen that. We know he's got, his weaknesses. I think he's tried to work on them. He's not the best kicker of a ball unless you want to put it into touch. Then he's top notch. But as a keeper, he's how vocal he is. A number of times that he will sweep up. And to be honest, the last couple of seasons, some of the saves he's made have been absolutely phenomenal. We only have to think of the ones in the cup final, and again, he's done the same in the Euros. He's a fantastic goalkeeper and a fantastic man as well.
It's not a decision I would like to make. But the decision to turn my mic off while I had a quick sneeze was what I was able to make. But yes, at some point, whether Danny Ward is still with us at that time, but we do seem to almost have, enough to field a full team of goalkeepers sometimes. We're signing them left, right and centre. He's got to go in the top 5, hasn't he?
Well, you would think that, Chris, but we do have a fantastic selection of goalkeepers. Yes, he goes straight in.
Is it Mr. Walker that comes out?
It is indeed.
Yes. Good. I didn't want to see Mark disappear, but I have a feeling. So Casper goes into there. So we're down to 3. So Mr. Kevin Poole.
Yes, Kevin Poole. 195 appearances for Leicester City between 1991 and 97. Playoff winners twice in 94 and 96. But what do you think of when you think of Kevin Poole? Do you think of any of his great saves? Do you think of any of his great performances? Or do you still think of him being substituted in a playoff final? And
unfortunately,
sadly,
that is what he's stuck with, isn't it?
Yeah, that is. And I mean, we talk about people who look after themselves, and Kevin Poole never wanted to stop playing. In 2013, he appeared on the bench. Admittedly, he didn't play, but he appeared on the bench for Burton Albion at the age of 50.
He did. I remember reading that. Yeah.
Yeah, 50-year-old goalkeeper on the bench. What would Man U give for that now?
Well, as long as it's one that can kick a penalty, they'd probably grab him.
Yeah.
Ankit saying here, we were saying that he didn't have a bad Euros at all, Schmeichel, and he, but Kevin Poole anyway. Does he make it into your top 5? I mean, I'd love to say yes, and I think in one of those playoff finals, he did make an absolutely brilliant save, but unfortunately, his legacy is the fact that he was replaced by Dracula. So. Does he make it into your top 5?
Great keeper and for a long time as well, and a real sort of bedrock of our team. But sadly, he can't dislodge any of those 5.
I must admit, I wouldn't argue with that, and I thought he was going to struggle to get in. And I have a feeling tonight's going to be a good night. Mr. Tim Flowers. A Premier League winner himself, but not with us.
Yeah, he came to us from Blackburn, where he won the Premier League title, but they'd gone on to get relegated. They didn't sustain it the way that we have, I guess. They had Jack Walker's money at the time, but they couldn't sustain that period, so he came to us.
They sold out to chicken farmers.
They did indeed, didn't they?
They did. And I always remember, because I actually worked for Blackburn Rovers for a time. I lived in Burnley, which was a great laugh. Where do you work, Chris? You don't want to know. You don't want to know. But I remember they had Sam Allardyce as their manager, and the fans hated him. They didn't like him. They were mid-table, top half of the Premier League, but the chicken owners decided in an effort to sort of please the crowd that no, he should go.
Yeah.
And they replaced him with his assistant, whose name I can't even remember. But they got relegated that season.
Yeah.
And they ended up in the 3rd tier for a few seasons as well. And that is always, I use that as my be careful what you wish for story. Because, you want these managers out. Charlton wanted Alan Kirbishley out for a season and a bit.
Yeah.
What happened to them? While he was there. Ankit's making notes, by the way. Ready for the Leicester questions?
I'll bear that in mind, Ankit.
Well, if you're volunteering to be Chelsea, Ankit, send me a message on Twitter and we'll sort it out. But you have to be on camera so we can see that you're not cheating. Not that I would accuse a Chelsea fan of cheating, of course. No. But so we were talking anyway. I apologise. I digress there with my Blackburn story, but it is very true that you do have to be careful. But Mr. Tim Flowers.
Yeah, so between 1999 and 2003, 66 appearances, which isn't a lot during that time, to be honest. Did win the League Cup with us in the first season he was here. In the Tranmere Rovers cup final. A beautiful cup final that all those who were not fans of Leicester City and Tranmere Rovers probably never watched. I would imagine that's probably the lowest viewing figures for any League Cup final there's ever been.
Probably.
But we won
Probably.
it. We won it. But I don't think his time with us didn't end particularly well, to be honest, because he actually finished his career with us. But during the time he was here, he went on loan to Man City. Just shows you that we're sending our keeper who can't get in on loan to Man City at that time. Coventry
Different times.
Coventry and Stockport. He went out on loan to during his final time with us. Did come back as a goalkeeping coach for a few years though, with us. And again, during the length of his career, a great goalkeeper, a Premier League goalkeeper, a winning goalkeeper. I don't think his years with us were the best of his career.
No. I think he's still in coaching somewhere, isn't he?
I think he's had a couple of positions that haven't gone out too well, where he's tried himself at management, but I think he may have just gone back into coaching rather than anything else.
I'm guessing, again, just, a feeling that I'm getting, and it could be the way I'm sat, of course, but that he's not going to make it into the top 5 either.
No, again, you look at the 5 who are in there, and I don't think you can really make an argument for him replacing any of them. As good as the keeper he was during his career, if we're talking about the time at Leicester, then sadly not.
And we are down to our last one, and this is a gentleman, again, one of those that you suggested putting in, and I had completely forgotten about. But he had some good games for us, Mr.
He did.
And I'll just bring it up here, Mr. Peggy or Pegsad.
Yeah,
if that's pronounced right.
Yeah, I'll fix that, I think. But he didn't play that many games. 24 games between 97 and 2000. But the games he did play, he stamped his authority on them. I think it's fair to say, and I think that's why I wanted him in here. I wanted him to have his moment when we're talking about great goalkeepers. I think he was the goalkeeper in some great games, and particularly 2 penalty shootouts
in the League Cup, was it?
Yeah, League Cup against Fulham in the quarter-final when we went on and got to the final against Fulham, and I remember that game really, really vividly. I think Steve Walsh had a nightmare. And gave a goal to Paul Pescasolido. Did manage to get a goal back. I think Chris Coleman was playing for Fulham at the time and scored. I think it was a 3-3 draw in the end, and it went to a penalty shootout. And Peggy was a hero. I think he saved at least 2, maybe 3.
I don't know if because it was 2-2 at full time, then 3-3 at the end of extra time. I'm not sure whether Fulham actually missed all their penalties.
I think they might well have done all the ones that they got to take. I'm sure. I remember Chris Coleman taking a penalty as well, and but then it went on later the same. I think it was the same season, but later on, the following season, in a 4th round FA Cup replay against Arsenal, where he again was the hero and took us through to the next round, and. Apparently, again, reading up, he was instrumental in Liverpool in his final season at Leicester, not making it into the Champions League when we had a 1-1 draw up at Anfield, and he stopped. He had such a fantastic performance that Gerard Houllier actually signed him for Liverpool.
I was about to say he signed him up, didn't he?
Yeah, on a Bosman. I think obviously with the penalty shootouts, he'd had quite a bit of publicity. He looked the part, didn't he? He looked like this sort of maverick goalkeeper, and put in some fantastic performances. But he would have stayed with us if he was promised the number 1 slot, but. He wasn't, and so he decided to move on the Bosman to Liverpool. I think he didn't have a great number of games there, but I think he
No.
played in a few important games. But you know, he was Liverpool goalkeeper again. Something great to have on your CV.
Exactly. Now I'm thinking, if he does make it in, that he may replace Keller, or he may replace Mark Wallington. I can't see him, Shilton, Banks, or Casper being edged out. But you know, I'd forgotten about him. You know, he was more of a reserve keeper than a main keeper.
Yeah.
Does he make it into the top 5?
I think if he was going to make it, it would have been in place of Keller, because the other 4 for me are the top 4. Wallington has to be in there. But no, I think Keller, as I say, goalkeeper for 3 top 10 Premier League finishes, has to stay in there. So Peggy, I just wanted him to get his mention, and but no, he doesn't make it in.
Can I ask a question here? That you and Peggy aren't like Peter and Junior, are you? You know, you haven't got one of these things of going for him.
No.
No. Good. Right. Well, we're going to come down to that moment, and we're going to be picking the best one. We'll be right back straight after this.
Give me 5 from Leicester Till I Die TV.
Join in as we look at the good, the bad, and even the ugly
of Leicester City
with Chris and Chums.
Right, building it up for you here then, Craig.
Yeah.
So I think you've got a very, very, very good top 5 there.
Me too.
I think I would not. There isn't one below, even though Kellech is to me what Peggy is to you.
Yeah.
I love the guy, even for just for that one speech, you know. But you cannot get a better 5 than that, you know.
No.
I don't think we missed anybody. I think the ones we picked were probably the best that we've had, but that I've got to agree 100. And I never thought I'd ever say this. Agree with you 100% with
that is quite strange that you're doing that, Chris. That does sort of somewhat perplex me, shall we say?
Yeah. I've been worried. I need my medication, like I said the other day. So, Peter Shilton, Caspar Schmeichel, Keller, Gordon Banks, Mark Wallington, who I think it's out. Possibly, I think it's out of 3.
Yep.
I'm trying to think here. So I would imagine, let's take this down to a top 3 first of all.
Okay.
Peter's in your top 3, isn't he? Peter Shilton.
Yeah, Shilton's in there.
Schmeichel's got to be in there.
Has he?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll leave him in.
No, you could be different, but I'm just thinking you've put him in there, haven't you?
I'm joking. He's in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I could just take him out now, just for the hell of it. And I'm guessing Gordon Banks.
Yeah, they're the top 3.
They're the top 3. 4th and 5th, who would you put just out of interest, top and bottom?
Wallington 4th.
And Casey 5th.
Yeah.
So, drum roll. Gold, silver, bronze. Peter Shilton, Casper Schmeichel, Gordon Banks. I'm really struggling here to be sure of where you might. I think I know where you're going to go with it, but I'm just not. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to type it into the chat here and just see, because this is who, and I know you can't see the chat, so no, I can just put it here. Who I think will.
Now, is this who you would choose, or is this who you think I will choose?
Both.
Right. Okay.
In honesty, because I think it's who I would choose, and I've surprised myself here. Yeah. I really have. But I've listened to you, and I didn't ever see Gordon play. Mm-hmm. And although I went for Gordon over Peter, I did. You know, I kind of remember seeing Peter play, and I certainly remember him coming back with other clubs to play us. Mm. But I can say, I think it's the one that I've gone for. It is also the one I think you will go for as well, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yep. So
I had a sound effect.
Yeah,
I wish I'd got a sound effect.
So in my opinion, I've switched around on this. That top five has been pretty solid the whole time that we've been talking through different keepers, and that top five sort of came to me pretty easy, I think, in terms of a five.
Once those five got in there, they were pretty much you weren't budging them, were you? Once they got in there,
no. And as I say, I've learned more in doing the research and just phenomenal the information that I found. That stat about Gordon Banks is phenomenal to me.
It is.
Growing up, I grew up with Peter Shilton all the way through the 70s.
He's never mentioned you when he's been on telly.
No, we're Leicester lads. I'm sort of in the shadow. But through the 70s, which was for me, the 70s, 80s were the greatest eras, and then he was there in Italia '90, which was for me still the greatest World Cup that I've ever seen, the greatest tournament I've ever seen, and it's sort of almost difficult to split the two of them. But the more I've thought about it, for me, for what he's won, for what he brings to the club, the way he conducts himself on and off it, for me, Caspar Schmeichel is now the greatest keeper that we've had as a Leicester City player. We're not talking about the whole of their career. We're talking about the period of time that they've been at Leicester City. And I think it's almost impossible to argue against what Casper's won. He's been a goalkeeper behind a Premier League win and an FA Cup win. He's gone on to represent his country. He's represented the club. He's faced up to all the manner of the highs and such lows that we've had. And I think on and off the pitch, he's a credit to his dad. He's compared to his dad, but I think he's gone beyond his dad in terms of how he conducts himself. He's total professional. And for me, as great as those two keepers were, and it almost surprises me that I came to this conclusion in the end, I have to give it to Casper Schmeichel.
Well, again, this is really weird and really strange, and I do really desperately need to take some medication because, as you can see, I found myself totally agreeing with you.
Yeah.
And going for Casper. I mean, Peter and Gordon, great musical act. Yes. Yeah. Puff the Magic Dragon. My God, you wouldn't get away with that these days, would you? Apparently, it is legal in some parts of Eastern Europe. Peter Shilton, Gordon Banks, great goalkeepers. You can't deny it. They deserve to be. And I put Peter second and third because in that order, because that's what you personally said earlier. Gordon, it was different times back then. I didn't, like you say, only ever saw him on the telly. He won a World Cup, with us. He made that amazing save, and Pelly would turn around and was going off celebrating.
He was,
and that save cemented a friendship, and this was before most footballers were sort of up themselves. They were friends off the pitch. They respected that save. There was mutual respect between them.
Yeah,
I think Bobby Moore and Pelly as well, but there was just like I say, I don't think Pelly could believe that it didn't go in. Peter Shilton, again, you can't, the number of times he played for England, and as we said earlier, it would have been more had it not been for, Ray Clements, who, in his own right was good. I never agree with swapping keepers like that, to be honest with you, but there you go. But yes, I remember the Poland game when we didn't qualify for the World Cup, and he not fairly, got the blame because he was wearing a white outfit and they reckoned he could be seen better in the dark. I mean, by God, we were looking for scapegoats, weren't we? You know, it ended up being was that Sir Alf Ramsey? It was, I believe, wasn't it? Or was it not?
It might have been. I'm not sure because it was the famous Jan Tomaszewski, wasn't it? Game when he was famously described as a clown in goal, but he saved everything.
Yes, he did. He did. Brian Clough describing him as a clown and having an argument with Brian Moore on the show afterwards.
Yeah.
But a TM says here, I knew what you were going to say him. She's probably just a little bit upset that, you know, Ian Walker's had to drop out the top 5. Sorry, TM. Ian Walker, a bit like, you know, now he was Spurs, wasn't he? You know, no, joking apart, he made it onto the board. Yeah, he did. You said he would have put a bet on that result. But the thing is, like you say, Casper, and I know as they. We don't agree about sort of goalkeepers because I don't like goalkeepers as on-field captains. No. And you like him, although the fact that he doesn't play like a quarterback, but it's everything he embodies. You know, he is, and I know we use the term, you know, quite lightly because we know Alan Birchnell we say is Mr. Leicester. What have you? But he is, you know, he had to be held back from going in after the
in the crash,
into the crash. Thank you. And the way he was with, you know, Mrs. Eriksson on the pitch of the World Cup. I mean, the guy just he's like you say, he's a credit to his dad. His dad is obviously extremely proud of him, and so he should be. But he's won it with Leicester. He's won the Premier League. Would we have won it with another goalkeeper in there? Questionable.
Yeah.
You know, and you've also got to, you know, he won the FA Cup, and again, you know, but for him, would we have won it? And that's not mentioning his antics in Europe when he was saving penalties and shots all over the place in the Champions League. So yes, quite rightly, I quite agree with you there, and absolutely great choice. Casper Schmeichel is the number 1 all-time Leicester City goalkeeper, and I mentioned to, and there's going to be a couple here that probably didn't even make it onto the list. Your favourite, Ron, what's he called? Ron Zieler.
Ron Robert Zieler.
Robert Zieler, yes, who was one of Claudio's signings.
Yeah, eight games. Can't remember any of them. You know, maybe he was that good. You know, they say that
he wasn't.
If referees have a great game, you don't notice them. Maybe he was so good, but we
well, unfortunately, the one game I do remember, but and I might be doing him injustice here, was he came in for the game against Porto in the when we played in the red strip, and we'd already qualified as it happened, but
5-0.
Yes, and 5-0, the biggest defeat at that point for an English club. But poor old Ron. Any other goalkeepers you can think of that we've left off?
Conrad Logan, the perennial bench warmer. I mean, I'm not sure if anybody. It would be interesting if there are any stats about the number of times that somebody's been on a bench without playing. But he's got to be up there, to be honest. And fair play to him. You know, he was always there when he was called upon, which was rarely. He didn't let anybody down. But
no, I don't remember him. You know, we joke about Kalic, and he threw that game in the cup away with his dropping his crosses. And we've just said then about Ron Zieler in the 5-0. I don't ever remember. You know, Conrad letting us down when he was called upon. But
but we had a few of those sort of keepers. You know, Mike Hooper was with us. Was with us for a while, wasn't he? You know, so we've had a few fleeting keepers, but usually once you hold down the position, you're there for a few seasons.
The hardest position to get somebody out of. And of course, you know, my second favourite, Kevin Pressman.
Yes, of course. You can't stop mentioning him, can you?
No, mentioned him in before, you know, and if ever the pie stand was empty, we knew where they were, didn't we?
Indeed. And I mean, the bearded wonder, Ben Hamer.
Now, he was another one, a bit like Conrad Logan, wasn't he? Because he came from a Premier League club, and I don't know who he was second to.
Yeah.
And there was a very thin guy as well that was a goalkeeper that was always injured. No, but you score a very good goal at the King Power Stadium.
Yeah.
One of the I believe one of the best they've ever seen there. Chris Kirkland.
Oh, Chris Kirkland, of course. Yeah. I mean, again, a local lad.
Yes.
Came to us via a few clubs, didn't he? I think he was at Liverpool for a period.
He was. I think he came to us from Liverpool. Yes.
Yeah.
And in the twilight of his career, shall we say?
Yeah, and obviously the great goalkeeper that we bought from Hull, who is still rarely even gets onto the bench these days, Jukupovic.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah, to be honest, I've had to drag that name from the back of my mind. Usually you only see him during the warm-up down at the King Power. When he's warming up the proper reserve keeper. So, but we've had a few.
The thing is, though, with he's only just signed an extension, or last season he signed an extension to his contract, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then we're looking at all these other keepers again. But, he's there, I suppose, if we need him. And who knows if Danny goes to Wolves, which is the rumours. Facebook user is saying Peter Shilton. He came second. Let's just bring this up again. So let's have a look at it one last time. So top of the I click on it twice, it comes and goes. I'm not used to clicking on everything twice. So Casper is the best goalkeeper we've ever had. Schultz number 2, Banks of England 3rd, Baldy 4th, Mark. I'm sorry, Mark, I loved you really. Casey Keller 5. Where would you stick in there in the last one then? Because we've got that position free now. I'll give you a Joker's card. You can play a Joker's card. I know who I would add in there.
Yeah. Difficult one, really. I would probably. Ian Andrews.
Really? Wow.
I just think he was for 4 seasons. He was the number 1 keeper. And if you don't stay as the number 1 keeper for 4 seasons, if you're not that good, the other team, you could make an argument for Tim Flowers, but at the end of it, I don't think he was here in goal long enough at the top of his game to warrant it.
I agree with you down 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5th, but I had to disagree with you at some time. For me, I'd have to put that gentleman on.
Is that Kevin Poole?
Yes.
Yeah. No. I'd forgotten. I couldn't see all of the screen. So no, I'll go with you on that one, Chris. I'll go with you on that one, Kevin. Yeah.
Fair dues. Mate, it's been fantastic. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. Enjoyed that. And I'll tell you what, 6 months ago, I think it may have been a different result, but his performance in the cup final with 2 just unbelievable saves, his performance in the Euros and the way that he conducted himself. I think you just look at him almost beyond being a goalkeeper now. So that's why he's just nudged ahead for me.
Agree totally. And we will see you 7 o'clock on Thursday.
We will, for a big fat quiz.
And I just based that on me. So just in case anybody wonders, not the Channel 4, whatever it is, I based it on me. And we're starting with a Leicester. So we'll have a chat after the end of the show. Yep. Stay in the green room. We'll have a chat about that. And that's the first one. Thursday, big fat quiz of the big fat football quiz. That's it. Mate, thanks very much. Great as always. Enjoyed that. And we'll probably do another one before the season starts. So thanks very much, Craig. See you on Thursday. Everyone.
Cheers.
Stay safe, mate.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, so, thanks to Craig there. We are going to be back on Thursday at 7 o'clock for this.
It's the Big Fat Football Quiz with Leicester Till I Die TV.
So you think you know your football?
Well, let's see.
We're going to be back with Matt, and he will be for Leicester. We're going to start with the Leicester fans. Set the bar high. Well, we've got Burnley coming up after it, so Burnley might be doing the limbo under the bar, I think. But hey, thanks for joining in. Thanks for Craig. Don't forget that if you've got nothing to do later on, you got an hour clear, then, well, you know what? Clip onto the YouTube site and have a look for this.
Hi, Alan Smith here. Be sure to watch and listen to Chris on Leicester Till I Die TV. You can also subscribe on YouTube and various social media channels. Up the Foxes!
Yes, we did. Wearing this kit in honour of him. Mr. Alan Smith did a great chat with him earlier. It's up there on the latest shows or in conversation with Lines. Click on the YouTube site, or if you want to listen rather than watch, we don't mind. You can catch us all over the place on the podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, to name just a few. Guys, thanks very much. I'll see you 6 o'clock. No, I won't. 7 o'clock. I've just made Craig panic then. 7 o'clock on Thursday. See you then. Thanks for watching. Great show. Thanks to Craig for coming on. Take care. See you Thursday.
Hello, Matt Elliott here. Be sure to watch Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and follow all their social media platforms for all the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football Club.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye and see you next time.
To an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.